Get ready and start your engines for our 5th annual Aviation Month on Savvy Business Radio. Our official sponsor is Winty Graphic Design, your one-stop shop for all your graphic needs, from business cards, logos, book covers, and banners. Contact Winty today in order to find out how your custom design can become a reality at 718-841-7441. Our 5th annual Aviation Month logo was done by Winty. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio. This is your host, Christina Nitschmann. Our first guest today is John and Martha King of King Schools. They have served the aviation community for over 40 years and delivered many millions of courses to pilots in training. It is no surprise that pilots throughout the world know John and Martha and regard them as their personal aviation mentors. Find out more about their school at kingschools.com. Our second guest is Erasmo Malacara. Eddie wasn't even supposed to be a pilot, according to doctors. However, today he and his school help Hispanic students around the world learn to fly. Find out more about Eddie and his school and his videos at eddieaviationstore.com. Hi, John and Martha. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio for our 5th annual Aviation Month. I'm so happy to have you here. How are you both?
We're doing fine, Christina. How are you?
It's a real delight to be here.
Oh, I'm doing fabulous, guys. I'm so happy to have you here. We're going to touch so many wonderful subjects today. Both of you have been the king of teaching pilots across the globe with your wonderful video series and also personally flight students for many, many years. And I just want, before we get started, share with our audience a little bit of what brought both of you to the world of aviation, inspired you both to create your wonderful, successful business, King Schools.
Well, when I was a young boy, my father was a pilot, and Martha's father was a pilot.
Right. Mine was in the Air Force, though, and did not fly civilian, and didn't really think along the lines of women flying airplanes because they really weren't in the Air Force at that time. Mm-hmm. And so it was really John's background and his father that got him started, and John got me started.
When I was a little boy, my dad had an Orosco Champ, and he took me flying in it, and it didn't take him very long before he had a minor accident in it and disabled it, and that ended my flying career until I went to high school. And in high school, I started flying, but it was costing the outrageous amount of $8 an hour.
Whoa.
And, that was airplane.
You're dating yourself, John.
I was airplane and instructor, and I grew up. I got my guild wholesale as a kid. I grew up going to Catholic school, and I felt very guilty about everything. And I felt guilty about spending that money to learn to fly when I needed to be saving to go to college. So I quit flying after I soloed. And then when Martha and I got married, I think I made it pretty clear to her somewhere along the line that I wanted to fly again. And
well, you were flying with a family friend lot in the meantime. And I can say that when we got married, you were very hooked on it. It's just that at the time we were still in college and we didn't have either the time or the money to get involved.
That's true. And a friend and I used to go over to, I lived in Indiana, and we'd fly over to Ohio, Dayton, where Martha lived. We'd fly in this old Piper Pacer, not a tri-pacer, but a conventional gear pacer, and go over and see Martha. And she wasn't very impressed. She wasn't very impressed by the airplane and by and I was a clod, and I was not very chivalrous, and I would fly up front and have her ride in the back seat. And that was, if I had any intelligence at all, I would have had myself in the back seat and her in front, but I wasn't that smart. Yeah.
Aww.
So she didn't.
No permanent damage.
Yeah, she didn't think that it was the most fun thing in the world to fly around a little airplane.
Uh-huh. Wow. Well, this intrigues me, Martha, because I got into flying actually because I had a petrifying fear of flying, and I loved to travel. So in 2006, I said, you know what, I'm going to kick my fear to the curb this year, and I'm going to go to a flight school and just take some lessons and see if I can just get rid of this fear. You know, it's right. By inundating myself in the airplane and going up time after time, and then also meeting my wonderful partner now, we've been together, Brian and I, for 10 years. He's a pilot. Gosh, 27 years. And he's right by me reminding me how long he's been flying. But he's really, I mean, we've flown all across the country, and it's just totally eliminated my fear. But Martha, I mean, how was it for you really getting to the joy of flight? Because at first you weren't very impressed. How did that work out for you?
Well, we were in another business for a while, and then sold that as a franchise in Indianapolis. This was after we were married, and we had both some time and some money. And John wanted to learn to fly. At that point, we had the money to do it and the time to do it. And I wasn't going to sit at home while he was out at the airport having fun. So I went out with him, but it was with kind of a grim determination, I guess you could say, that if he could do it, I could do it, and I'll hang in there, and I'll make something out of this. And that was the way it was until my first solo cross country, which was all the way the huge distance from Indianapolis, Indiana to Richmond, Indiana and back.
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful flight. I ended up, because of taking my time and a few small rain showers, coming back as it was getting dark. And the air was beautifully smooth. The lights were coming on underneath me. It was like, as I said to John later, it was like having jewels just strewn out over black velvet, and it was just gorgeous and smooth and wonderful. And I fell in love with flying on that trip, and John's been stuck ever since. I guess he keeps saying that it would have been better if I'd fallen in love with jewelry. It would have been less expensive
it would have
for
been a lot
him.
cheaper. But she got out of the airplane, stood up on the wing, and we were all concerned because she came back after dark, and she hadn't had any night flying. That was her first night flying experience, and the instructor was very concerned. Would she be an emotional basket case? Was he going to have to console her? And she got out, and there was a little Cherokee 140, and she got out and stood up on that wing and said, "That was beautiful." And from then on in, it was just a case of, we both like to learn things. And Martha is a very, when I met Martha and when we dated and it became apparent that we were interested in each other, Martha's father got me aside and said, "I want you to know she's the most stubborn person I've ever met in my life." And I said, "I already know that." But I said, I think of it as more like determination. And Martha is one who always completes what she sets out to do. And she is a very determined person. And it just shows up in her flying. She just really, really likes to learn. She's not lazy. She's hard working. And I have to tell you, I want to make it clear, she's only a little bit better pilot than I am.
Aw. Well, you know what I heard from you in the beginning there of your story of this part is that you had mentioned that you had another business which you had sold, franchise, and then had a little bit of money to start flying. So this brings me to the next question, which is really, now that you have your amazing school, the King Schools, what have been some of the major hurdles? Because I'm sure it wasn't always easy getting your business up and rolling. What were some of the hurdles and how did you overcome them?
Well, the interesting thing is that we were in this other business, which was basically lubrication and oil changes for truck fleets. And during the OPEC oil embargo back in 1973, we went broke in that. We had designed the business. It was our own fault. We were defective in our design because we started it basically while we were still in college and we weren't that knowledgeable yet. And after it went bankrupt, we looked around and said, wow, that hurt. Let's not do that anymore. Let's find something that we can do for the fun of it until a serious business comes along. And we worked for about 4 months for another company that was doing traveling weekend ground schools. And then we went out on our own doing it. And basically, we owned, I'd say, a pretty good job because we had the ability to fly around in our own airplane to the different cities where we were doing the weekend classes to pass the FAA knowledge tests. And we loved the flying. We enjoyed very much meeting the pilots that we did. And but basically, we owned a good job for a long time.
Our original philosophy is let's do something for the fun of it until a serious business comes along. And it's been 41 years. We've never found a serious business. So we're still doing it for the fun of it. But what happened is for 10 years, we taught classes. Martha would teach the instrument and instrument instructor in one classroom. What we were doing is traveling around the hotels in different cities and renting meeting rooms. And she would teach the instrument and instrument instructor in one room, and I would teach the private and commercial and flight instructor in the other room. And we would teach 50 weekends a year, and we did that for 10 years. So we had taught these classes about 500 times and very, very much enjoyed it. We really, really liked flying. We really liked teaching. And then someone said to us, you should put these courses on video. And it was just about the time they started making VCRs. Very, very few of them were out there.
I think only about, fewer than 5%, less than 5% of households in the U.S. had VCRs at that time.
But what happened, first of all, we had given these courses over 500 times. We were really, really, really good. I mean, we really had it down. And so we put it on video, and we looked at ourselves and said, well, that's not too bad. Maybe we can do something with this. So we started selling them. And first of all, we sold them to flight instructors. And then we went to Oshkosh with them, and we were selling them for $500 for the set of videotapes. And people would come up and buy them, and we'd say, are you a flight instructor? And I say, no, I want these for myself. And we realized way back in 1974, people were paying $500 for a course for themselves. And that was a lot of money then. And so we thought, well, maybe we can sell these to individuals. And we started putting ads in magazines, and first had a single page black and white, and that was very successful. So then we did a color page, and then we went to two pages in color, and then pretty soon we had ads in every magazine, every aviation magazine in the United States, everything we could find. Wow. And so what happened is it was an overnight success that took 10 years to happen. Because we had been preparing for it for 10 years. Our courses were really, really good, and we'd been preparing for it for 10 years. But when it came, the video became available, and we could put ourselves in a box and ship it off to people, and they could take these courses in their own home, and that became available to them. The technology allowed that to happen. And when the technology allowed that to happen, it changed everything. People would buy the courses from us, and then a few minutes later the phone would ring, and the same customer was back, and they'd say, well, what kind of VCR should I get? They didn't have a VCR. They bought a VCR because they had this aviation course, our course, that they wanted to watch, and we were the triggering event for that. And the technology is what made that happen. And I have to tell you, this is a horrible thing to say, but we had a citation within a year. We just did very, very well, and we had some extra money, and we were really hooked on flying, so that allowed us to get a jet within a year. I guess you could say the hurdle that we got over at that point after the 10 years was transforming what had previously been a personal service business where we had to be there ourselves traveling around the country into a product business where, as John said, we had something that we could ship out to people, and it gave us more time, and we were less fatigued, so we had more time to think about marketing and more time to think about program development. And it let us work with economies of scale in a way that we just couldn't while it was still a personal services business. And we love business as well as flying. And there is just, what a wonderful thing to take a business that you care about, or an activity like aviation, and find a way to do something that can help thousands and thousands of people do what they want to do. And you become important to the aviation community. You become important to the community you serve. The business does well. What a wonderful dream thing it is to do a business about something you have a passion for, and then to have it work out. And it lets you do a good thing for a lot of people in a subject that you care about. So that's the dream of entrepreneurship, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've caught so much from your sharing there. And this is fabulous because it seems to me the greatest part, the foundation of all this was really taking a passion. And for one, you started it because you loved it and Correct. It was something you could have fun with. But then here was a way, after 10 years of giving that, your valued time away, you found a way to package it in a way that you could serve people in a greater way. I mean, thousands and thousands of people. We, in fact, have a bunch of your VH tapes today, and they still work, by the way, guys, and they're awesome.
Well, you're one of some of the few people who still have VCRs then.
And an interesting thing, you talk about hurdles, but one of the things in order for us to stay in business is required us to do is to keep up with the changing technology. Mm-hmm. And if we missed that opportunity to put the courses on VHS, we would have been able to do what we did. But then later on, people put courses on computer, and then from computer, they went to the internet. And
and now we're past the internet onto iPads.
Yeah, we now have a companion app, and you can download your course onto your iPad and take it anywhere. So all of these changes in technology, and they've all been wonderful, wonderful things. A lot of people think that we're in an era of scarcity, but we're actually in an era of abundance because look at all of the things you can do with your iPhone. It's just a wonderful, wonderful thing.
I think now more than ever, guys, it's the greatest time to go into business with your gifts and talents in the world and look for ways to really get it out to the public, which there are so many ways. So there are just so many opportunities out there for business owners. But what I'm interested in, guys, flying around for so many years around the country, around the world, what has been your greatest important lesson you've both learned in the cockpit?
Oh, wow.
Boy, there's a bunch of them.
Well, first of all, flying an aircraft is really about knowing what's happening now and what's about to happen next. It's about risk management. In aviation, we like to call that situational awareness.
And it's about having a plan B and maybe a plan C for what could happen next.
But there's so many parallels between flying and business because business is the same way. You need to know what's happening now and what's about to happen next and how that will affect you. And we've learned a lot about business from flying and flying from business because they both kind of have that same set of rules that you got to have good situational awareness and you got to seek out and identify the risks and mitigate the risks and manage them, and it applies to both business and flying.
Absolutely. I've totally realized that on my journey to learning to fly and hanging out with my pilot friend, Brian, here. I mean, we've flown to a number of places where we realized, oops, we weren't quite set for this and we got to do more planning next time.
And as you say, Christina, in the pre-flight briefings and the checking out the information is what makes the trip delightfully boring and fun as opposed to teetering on the terrifying.
But someone asked me yesterday, I think it was, do pilots have situational awareness? Is there an aptitude for that or can they learn it? And I think the answer is both. And I think the same thing is a little bit true of business. You have to learn what to think about to be situationally aware. And
exactly.
It's a tool that you can develop the habit for, and there are resources that you can use to help you think about it the right way so that you are more situationally aware.
Well, the first thing is to develop the habit. And if you're sitting in the aircraft and we use an aviation term, you're fat, dumb, and happy. You're just sitting there and don't know what's happening, what's about to happen next. reality will smack you somewhere along the line.
Just like it will in business.
Absolutely.
Oh, exactly. I mean, once we were flying, me and my partner, and the electronics went out for a brief time. But at that time, I was like, do I really have a situational awareness of where exactly I am? Because I had become quite reliant on the glass cockpit and paying attention to the magenta line.
You're very relaxed, fat, dumb, and happy. And then all of a sudden, I don't have a clue where we are.
You're like, oh my gosh, do I know where I am? Yeah. So, but the same comes true with business. I've heard so many business owners say, hey, we're doing well, we're pulling in money, we have all these clients, and then the economy changes. You can run into a problem. Your business can go down really quick if you don't have that planning ahead and thinking ahead, plan A, B, C.
Well, Martha and I used to fly the Fujifilm blimp. First of all, the blimp flying is very, very interesting. It's the hardest flying we do.
Wow.
Because, most, for instance, a helicopter is very responsive and it takes a lot of physical skill.
A helicopter is difficult to fly, and as John says, it's very responsive. It's difficult, but it will actually do what you ask it to do as long as you have the appropriate physical skill. When you're trying to fly a blimp, you ask it to do something by manipulating the controls a certain way, and very often it will think about it for a little while, and then usually it'll do what you want it to do, but sometimes it'll do the opposite.
Yeah, passengers would come up and say, are these controls hooked up backwards? Because every time you have the controls to the right, the blimp is turning to the left. And we would say, well, that's why we have the controls to the right. We're trying to stop it from turning to the left, but it doesn't always do that. But the point I was going to make is it was the Fujifilm blimp, and it no longer flies because they don't sell film anymore. And how quickly that's happened. I mean, that's only happened, in the last maybe more than 10 years, but film is gone, and can you imagine? And now everybody has a camera in their pocket with a smartphone, and so cameras are everywhere. Look how that's changed lives, and look how many opportunities have come about because of smartphones, and there's apps you can sell and things you can do. So it changes very quickly.
If you didn't have your feelers out and see this whole digital camera coming to begin with, be in real trouble as far as film. And if you didn't see the really good cameras and the smartphones coming, you might still be in digital cameras for the run-of-the-mill population and be getting skinned alive.
But it's interesting how things have changed. Even in aviation, we now use our iPads in the cockpit. We have our charts on our iPads. And our checklists on our iPads, it just really makes flying. It's just changed flying totally. If you were in a business printing paper charts, you'd not be in good shape right now.
Yeah, exactly. But I really do appreciate that we don't have to carry around a whole briefcase worth of charts anymore.
Well, Martha and I flew around the world one time in our Falcon, the plane we have now. We had over 200 pounds of charts with us.
Wow. Well, it is a blessing. And for some of the businesses, like you said, that are printing the old charts by paper, I'm sure they're not doing as well. They had to revamp and get digital real quick. But I want to let all the listeners know that you are the only couple that have all of your ratings and certifications together, right? You both have all of them, and that you can get in aviation.
Yeah, we were the first couple to have all of them, every category and class. And by that, I mean single-engine land, multi-engine land, single-engine sea, multi-engine sea, blimps, helicopters, all of those things. Now, since the war in Afghanistan, some pilots are coming home with what they call powered lift. They're flying V-22 Ospreys, the tilt rotor aircraft, and they are now getting those on their civilian licenses, although
there is no civilian powered lift.
There are no civilian aircraft to fly. So we have to say we have every category and class that's available to a civilian pilot. Because now some military pilots are coming with those Osprey ratings, and they're not available to civilians. So we can say we're the first, and we can also say that we're the ones that...
and we're still the only couple.
And obviously the only couple to do all of that. And as I said earlier, Martha's a very determined person, and takes a lot of grit and determination to do all of that. She certainly has it.
And for both of you. And that's why, anyone out there feeling like I've always wanted to learn to fly, you must go check out the King School. Where can they do that?
Go on the web to kingschools.com .com.
Yeah, kingschools.com. That's very
That's
nice. Thank you.
You need to go there, and they can even do courses online on your site. I've seen that, so check it out. But you also have a wonderful new course coming out for remote pilots, because I know I have a lot of friends who also have been flying drones and such, and they've wanted to understand better all about that. But you are going to help pilots out there with that by your remote pilot drone course. Share a little bit with our audience about that.
Well, there's a new regulation that came out. The FAA issued it just a few months ago, Part 107. And what it is, if you want to use a drone that weighs less than 55 pounds, generally we would think of a quadcopter or something of that sort with a camera on it. And if you want to use it for anything for other than recreational or hobby purposes. In other words, you want to take pictures of a house, you want to sell real estate with it, anything that has a purpose, you have to now have a
has basically a business purpose.
A business purpose. Mm-hmm. You have to have a pilot's license.
And a remote pilot certificate.
And they call that a remote pilot because you're not sitting in the aircraft. Mm-hmm. So they call that a remote pilot's license. And we think of it as a drone pilot's license because that's what everybody calls them. But you now have to have that, and it's a test that's about 50 questions, and we prepare you for that. And they're going to ask you about airspace. One of the ways you can get in trouble as a drone pilot is you fly it in the airspace that airplane pilots are in, or fly it near an airplane, and it's certainly a risky thing to do, and you can get in trouble. So as a drone pilot, you have to know where the airspace is, what airspace to avoid, and those are the kinds of things you learn. And also the other rules and regulations. You can actually have a visual observer help you when you're flying a drone, who can keep the aircraft in sight while you might be operating the controls, and you can have more than one remote pilot. You can pass the controls back and forth between each other. So it gives you the rules for doing all of that.
Right, and that course is going to be out the end of the month.
Yeah, and it'll be $99. So,
ooh, that's a great price.
It is, and it is, and we've been, as we've said, we've been teaching pilots for lots of years, and we have it down. We make it easy. Our rule is make it clear, simple, and fun.
That's right, and I love fun because fun means it sticks. If you have
exactly.
Yeah, I remember when I first went to a couple flight schools, and I had some bad experiences in the beginning. One flight instructor I was teaching another student was from the military, and he thought the best way to get the information across was to scream and holler and demean. And I was like, well, that is not going to work with me. I know me. I am a very determined person as well, but I am not going to do well if you're screaming at me in the cockpit. I'm going to shut down, and I'm not going to be able to take in the information.
Right.
You don't learn well when you're angry, and when people are screaming at me, it makes me mad. Well, a funny thing about one of our rules in life is, I think, treating other people with civility and respect is a very important thing. I mean, one of our rules about having people work for us is that we think we have an obligation to providing them meaningful and rewarding work in an atmosphere of civility and respect. We're big on that. And Martha and I have for the last 30 years flown airplanes that require two pilots, alternating who's captain and co-pilot. So one leg she'll be captain, next leg I'll be captain. And we've been doing that now for 30 years. And someone said, at first, when we were flying together, we'd have a tendency to argue in the cockpit. And I had a friend that said, John, I can fix that problem for you two. And I said, oh, no, she's a very stubborn person. You can't fix that easy. And he says, no, I can fix that problem, and I can fix it with one word. And the question was, I said, all right, Bob, go ahead. Tell me, what's the word? The word is captain. And when we fly together and she's captain, I call her captain. And when I'm flying and I'm captain and I'm the pilot in command, she calls me captain. People who fly with us, all of our seats in our airplane have headsets because it would be cruel and unusual punishment to have people riding along with us couldn't hear what we're saying. So
but they're almost always pilots.
Everyone that rides with us is a pilot, so it would not be fair to not let them participate. But when we're up front, we're so formal with each other and so civil and so respectful, they almost think that it's a joke. But no, we were very, very formal about our flying. It's still lots and lots of fun, but we're very respectful of each other in it. And I think that's been the key for us, being equal partners in the airplane and equal partners in the business.
Yeah, that is wonderful, wonderful advice for all things in life, to really just realize who's going to have what part in this particular project, in this cockpit, so that we don't step on each other's toes and we keep it clean. And in aviation, as we call it, crew resource management. And it just makes good sense. We also do that, Brian and I, in the cockpit. We always make sure during critical critical phases. We're also not talking about anything personal or crazy. This is flying time, so we keep it professional.
Yeah, in jets, they have this, what they call the sterile cockpit rule, and that means you don't talk about anything other than the management and the safety of the flight below 10,000 feet. And,
Exactly.
And it really works. And we actually remind ourselves, if one of us forgets, and we'll go, wow, isn't that beautiful? And you start talking about how beautiful the ocean is today. We'll say sterile cockpit. The other person go, oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
You just get carried away. It's fun. You're there. You're doing it because it's fun. That's why you're doing it.
Exactly. Well, I want to thank you both. This has been so informative, so much fun. I want to thank you for coming to share your great wisdom today. Everyone, please go to kingschools.com and get your courses today. Learn how to fly. They're the people to fly with. Thank you again, John and Martha King, for coming to Savvy Business Radio for our 5th annual Aviation Month.
Thank you very much
We're
for
glad to
having
be
us,
here.
Christina.
And Christina, you make it fun.
Aw, thank you. Now, here's our interview with Erasmo Malacara. Well, Eddie, I'd like to thank you and for coming to Savvy Business Radio. How are you this morning?
Having a blast today. It's amazing. I can't believe that I'm alive, enjoying what God allowed me to enjoy, which is flying everywhere. I love it. And teach.
Yes, it's such a blessing that very many don't get to experience other than going to their local airport. But you're going to share some of your wonderful experience actually being a flight instructor and pilot. And, you know, it's funny. I love your real name, Erasmo Malacara. Share a little bit with the audience how, you know, what your name really means and how you came to calling yourself Eddie.
Sure. When I immigrated to the United States 23 years ago, my first boss, he cannot roll the R's. It's very hard for you guys to roll the R's. He cannot say he gets so frustrated. So he told me, hey, man, you know what? Speak it up a nickname. That way I can call you. So I came with I used my 3 first letter, Erasmo, E-R-A, and I started calling myself Eddie with an R. And people correct me. Then I changed that for E-D-Y, Eddie, and say, no, that's not the correct way, man. The correct way is E-D-D-I-E. So I took it, nickname, Eddie.
Yeah.
Where my boss can call me, and of course now a lot of people think that my real name is Eduardo or Edward.
Yes. Yeah.
That's nickname. In my last name, Malacara, M-A-L-A, it means bad, and C-A-R-A means face. So I'm bad face. So in Mexico, when people call me Capitan Malacara, a lot of people laugh because they think it's a joke.
Wow. Did you have...
They see Malacara, they think it's a joke.
Yeah, they think you're not telling the truth. What's your real name?
Exactly. Exactly. Something like come on, tell me the truth.
Yeah. You have a wonderful channel on YouTube that you inspire pilots around the world. Most of your students are Hispanic, and you're really what you've made it your mission to do is really just inspire the world, whether they're coming out there to decide to fly or not. What I love about your videos on YouTube is that you've really come to just want to inspire the world to live their greatness and become their dreams. Don't give up on their dreams. And you did a wonderful recent video on that. Share a little bit about your philosophy.
Yes. Well, the problem is, it's not a problem. It's like an adventure. As I'm getting more into aviation, I already have 23 years in aviation. I found that aviation is not only RPMs, levels, controls, flaps, etc. like that. It's a portion that I need to apologize to you. I cannot explain yet because I don't understand yet. But it's more like a portion of magic, mysticism, spiritual stuff that come from aviation. Like I just finished a series of 3 videos with a nice gentleman called Israel. He's a guy with special needs, and a lot of people get so excited with this video. And I'm not teaching him to fly. I just fly with him because his dream was to fly once, see the air. You can see there in my channel. And everyone is so excited because some people go from, man, I'm so blessed because I'm all my faculties are in good shape, to, man, that guy, he really have a wish come true. And I'm a believer. And some of the guys says, I tell you, Eddie, Israel, he asked God for the opportunity to fly once, and God find you and trust you to him to give him the opportunity to learn, to experience this this experience. And that's just the spiritual portion that I was talking that I cannot explain. That's why I apologize. Very hard.
No, I mean, I totally get it, because for me, I think people who've listened to my show understand by now, because they've heard the story enough times on Aviation Month. But I came into flying because I was scared to death of flying. I had a great fear of flying, but I love to travel. So I said, one year I made it my mission to conquer the fear. But the fear turned into an absolute love of flying. And now my partner and I take all our trips in an airplane, and it's just the best. I mean, you don't understand it until you get into a smaller aircraft, a general aviation aircraft, and experience flight. When you're in a big a commercial liner, you can experience the takeoff and everything, but it's not the same as being in the cockpit and really being at the helm and getting to experience you being the pilot. It's just an amazing experience that I hope everyone, once in their lifetime, just try.
Let me tell you something similar to you. When flying for me was something that I don't will be able to do it. Because when I was young, I had a problem with my right ear, and the doctor told me, you know what, you are not going to be able to fly, never, or die under the water because the problem on your ear. You need to be careful with that. If not, you're going to get deaf. So when I was 14 years old, they told me that. So from 14 years old to 20 years old, in my mind, everyone else can be a pilot except me. That was in my mind. When I came to the United States, I was 28 years old, and I started flying, and I found that if I become a crop duster, I don't need to fly too high. So that was my main goal, to become a crop duster pilot. And then I become what I am right now. But just the fact that I'm sitting down here with you, telling you my story, it's just a miracle, because it's not supposed to happen for me. I remember very clear when they told me, you never will be able to fly. So I put my dream on a little box and put a key and throw it. Now, and a lot of people with good or bad intention, they come to me and they try to protect me, and they told me, man, come on, stop dreaming. Put your feet on the ground. Come down from the clouds, man. Come and be realistic. You're not going to be able to do it because you're problem with your ear, because you don't have money, because you don't speak English, because this and that and that and that. Right now, I just want to testify that God is good. I have more than 13,000 hours of flying time. Most of them are on 11,000 as a flying instructor. Literally, right now, I'm doing exactly what people told me to don't do. Every day I'm in and out to the clouds. Every day I can put literally my feet on the ground. Every day I need to go up and down. So I fly around 6 or 7 hours every day. I put it like 1,000 hours a year. This last year of flying. So that for me is just a miracle, because I'm doing something that I'm not supposed to be able to do. Yeah. And that is my responsibility with the rest of the community, or the rest of the people, the humans, and mainly with the Hispanic community, to share what I learned, what God gave me as a present, and teach them and share with them as much as I can. Wow. Now, I don't want to become this interview of something about religion or that's my reality. God blessed me in a way that I can bless a lot of people, like Israel. It's just, but it works in backwards, because when I'm trying to bless Israel, honestly, the blessing was me. The hard part on the video, you will see it, is that it was very hard for me to don't cry.
No.
It was wow. It was, oh man.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's such a blessing when you're able to finally live your dream. And it's funny, Eddie, when I was first starting to fly, my second class ever, my first second class flying, I was in the bus studying my textbook, my flying textbook that they had given me in the flight school. And I was standing up, and it was a very crowded bus, and I pulled it out of my bag because I wanted to read the next chapter. I had the chapter I was currently reading on pieces of paper I printed out. So I'd finished that chapter. I was going to go on to the next chapter and pull the book out of my bag. And because the bus went over a big bump, it by me pulling at it, it went flying and hit me straight in the middle of my eye. And my cornea was really severely scratched and punctured. I couldn't see out of it for a full month. And then the other eye, because they both worked together, was in severe pain. So I couldn't see for a full month. And I was very concerned I was going to lose my eyesight at that point. And then everyone around me is like, see, you shouldn't be flying. This is God trying to tell you not to fly.
Exactly.
But no, that's not the truth. Sometimes things get tough, and I'm sure you've gone through that tough times as, working to become a pilot yourself and seeing students who work with you who go through those moments of things are difficult. And that doesn't mean it's time for you to give up on your dream. That means it's time for you to double down on your dream.
Exactly. Now, talking about hard times, I'm convinced that it's normal part of the procedure in order to become a pilot.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard to become. It's always a problem with the money. It's always the problem with the difficulties to learn to fly. And I try to project that as something normal. That way people don't get scared on their way to their destination.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not easy. Also, it's not impossible, but it's not easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just to keep it in mind. It might be a tough road, but it's very worth taking, because no matter what your dream is, what I find amazing, whether you decide to fly a plane or not, because maybe that's not your passion, that's not what God put in your heart for you to explode into the world and give your great gifts to the world. But whatever that is for you, that you don't let the hardships or the difficulties stop you in the road to completing that purpose in the world and granting the world your wonderful gifts that will make the world that much better. Yeah.
Definitely. Totally agree. And the principles that you learn on flying, you can apply any career, any art, any work that you want to do. They wrote the motivation side of my work is not. It don't apply to aviation. It applies totally to another areas of your life. Like if you can land a plane, you can save your marriage from divorce. If you can land a plane, you can multiply your business 10 times. You can land a plane, you can help your son that is in trouble with the law. If you can land a plane, you can do anything. You can land a plane, you can conquer anything.
That's true. It's true. Because what I've learned, I grew up really focused on music. I spent 4 to 5 hours a day practicing the violin. And my mom now says, well, you gave it up. What was that all worth it? I mean, I spent that money on the violin lessons. It was like I threw it away. And I said, no, absolutely, Mom. I was able to take that same focus when I started flying. I was able to take that focus into the workforce and then later to build my business and that discipline. I mean, so when you take flying or whatever it is that you really put your full effort into and focus and you practice, it's something that can be used in all parts of your life. It's cross correlation, that same knowledge. Now, what's really cool, Erasmo, is that you also have a wonderful flight school where you teach students, and you also transverse between here and Mexico. So I thought it'd be really interesting if you share your experiences flying from the United States to Mexico. Is there anything that pilots here who want to maybe fly there have to know?
Yes. Before I enter on this one, do you notice, Christina, before you ask me the last question, how we don't talk about RPMs, speeds, flaps? So we were talking totally another separate subject, and that's the magic, mystic, spiritual thing of aviation. That
yes,
someday I will be able to explain it, and I will publish another book, and I will explain people about that. Yes, we have a flight school on Edinburgh, Texas. Edinburgh, Texas is 16 nautical miles north of McAllen, Texas. We are right by the border between Mexico and United States. So that's why most of our clients are from Mexico, Hispanics. Do the violence in Mexico, well, right now it's not that bad, but a couple years ago, the violence in north of Mexico, it went out of control. Get to the point that people cannot even can drive from Monterrey, which is the third city in Mexico, to the Valley of Texas, McAllen, Texas. So they need to buy a plane to go back and forward. And that's how air aviation starts. It's a paradox, that a lot of people were suffering, and then my business just took off an amazing way. But that's the reality. So we are there on Edinburgh, Texas. Most of our clients come from Mexico, some people from Central America and South America. And we train on private pilots, instruments, commercial, multi-engine, and instructors. We don't train ATP because we don't have a market for that. But that's the market that we're exploring right now. ATP is here in Mexico. That's why I'm here in Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico, where most of the training is for commercial airlines in Mexico is given. So I'm working here in Guadalajara now. So there on the typical client, my client is the guy that wants to learn to fly, but he lives in Mexico, so he needs to come and do the all the training in the United States. And the two main problems that we have is one, which I think is for everyone, the lack of money. And two, the lack of English. So I decide when I started working with on Edinburgh, I was working with both with Americans and with Hispanics. I don't know if it's politically correct that way, but I was working with both. But the main market that I saw was the Hispanic population. So nobody was doing anything. If I try to work with the Americans, well, I know they have King schools, they have Orosco Malacara, they have Sporty, they have a bunch of tons and tools to help them. But if I look to the South, nobody else was doing anything. So that's why I took a decision and said, you know what, I'm going to concentrate on the Hispanic populations, on the Hispanic aviation community. And that's what I did. I just turned all the guns south and started working toward them. That's how we get very popular, because now everyone knows about air aviation in Mexico, Central America, South America, Spain, places where aviation is just beginning to grow, and nobody else is doing anything on those places.
Wow. And, I love that you saw a great need and desire of people, and you were able to step in there and create something that would help them. And that's what small business is all about. That's what entrepreneurship is all about, is that you see a need and you create a way to help people by giving them a valued service that they really need.
Yes, and I'm very thankful with technology, because I would be able to do it without the technology that we have right now. Like right now, the 5 countries that follow me the most, except the United States, in that order is Mexico, Argentina, Colombia, Venezuela, and Spain. I've never been in Argentina, but I have so many students in Argentina that I follow in my classes through online. I have the whole course, the pilot course online. So people, they buy the membership and they study with me, and then they fly in Argentina. I've never been in Argentina. I have a lot of invitations to Argentina. In Spain, they have even a channel from a channel in Spain.
Wow.
A lot of invitations in Spain, in Colombia. I've never been there. I will be there in the next couple of years, but I've never been there, and people is learning through my system. And the main need that I found was that, of course, if you are in the United States, you need to, the third requirement to become a private pilot is to be able to really speak, and understand the English language.
Wow.
But if you bring a Hispanic to the United States and then you try to teach him the concept of landing a plane in English, it would be very hard for him to understand. But if I explain him the concept of landing a plane in Spanish, it would be very fast. He would catch it like that, very quickly. Yeah. And then I just teach him the traduction to English. It would be fast and more practical. So I revert that teaching way, if you want. I cannot do it in the United States, because in the United States it needs to be in English. That's the law. That's the regulation.
Oh, really? Oh. Yeah. And can I ask you, is it really hard to once you've learned the actual mechanics of flying the plane, is the language part harder than the learning of the plane for your students?
Not really. Let me tell you this sample. Yesterday I sent 2 solo flights to a Class Delta Airspace McAllen, Texas. In the morning, one of my the best students, he's an American, he doesn't speak Spanish, he speaks only English. He gets so nervous that he messes it up big time on the tower. The tower, he knows about us, he helps us out. And then he just come back and say, Eddie, I'm so sorry, I messed it up big time. I get so panicky, so nervous. Okay, no problem. We're going to work on that and we're going to fix it. Go ahead. And then on the afternoon, another guy that went to McAllen several times, he went to, and the same problem. He gets so panicky and nervous and he forgot everything. And so I have 2 cases. One that speaks English since he was a baby. Another one that wasn't able to speak English since he was a baby. And both have the same problem. So no, I don't think that would be an issue. But as I said, in the United States, I cannot do that in Spanish. But as soon as you cross the river to the Mexican side, everyone speaks Spanish. That's why a lot of people say, why they are speaking Spanish in Mexico if the rule said that it needs to be in English? Well, that's true. The rule needs to said that if you talk, you call the controller in English, the controller needs to come back to you in English. That's the rule. But you cannot force a Mexican guy to speak English in his own country the same way you cannot force a German guy to speak English on Germany, or a French guy to speak English on French. You cannot force them that.
Yeah, yeah.
But in Mexico, you speak English to the controller. The controllers are very well known, and they speak you English back. So I took advantage of that. Okay, so I cannot teach this way in Spanish in the United States, so I'm going to emigrate south through the internet, and I will teach them in Spanish there, and then I will show them the translation to English. Then they can come to the United States and continue their training.
Bam. Awesome. And I like that you mentioned that, because I still even get a little frightful talking to air traffic control here in New York, because I'm near LaGuardia Airport, Kennedy Airport. It is, oh my gosh. So the minute you take off, you're talking to all of these huge airports and or ATC, and it gets a little intimidating. And I do, just like your student there, speak English. So yeah, and I think it's more of a mindset to get over the fear that these are just people here to serve and help you and keep the airways safe. Not really, they're not looking to penalize you.
Exactly. So like my first book is called Entendido, which is understand. Entendido, Manual BFR to communicate in the United States. It's a manual that I did in Spanish with English translation. And it's a hit right now in the Hispanic community. Everyone have access to that book in printed, download, digital download, and audio. And let me tell you how that started. That started when my students, we were eating together, and my students said, hey, come on, here's a napkin. Write down here what I need to say in downwind, what I need to say in base, what I need to say in final. So I write them on napkins, and soon I have a bunch of napkins with me, And then it was in my mind, okay, napkins, a bunch of napkins. Well, maybe I can do a little book. And I did the book, and it was a success. It's still a success. It's the only one on the market. It's called Entendido. And I explain the concepts in Spanish, and then I teach them the translations to English. Then they can come safely and fly in the United States. But we here in the border, we have a big problem with people that don't necessarily don't understand the English. Yesterday, when I was talking with the controller, I apologized to him. I said, "I'm sorry, man. I know my students, they make a mess there. Tell me what happened." Say, well, English was not the problem with them. The problem is they just don't understand the commands. They were so nervous that they don't need to enter left or right, downwind, something like that. So I need to go with them and review everything, all the procedures. Yeah. But for me, this is like an experiment. What I'm doing right now, it never has been done. It's like the Wright brothers. They never did it before, so they're experimenting. I'm doing the same with aviation communications. Yeah. I'm trying this way, and it's working. It's producing a good product. So I'm very excited. Very excited.
Yeah, it takes time. I mean, I remember years ago I traveled to Spain in my 20s, and this is the first indication where I had my first dealings with being around the speaking Spanish and such. And so I decided a month before my trip to get a book and just start learning all these phrases so that I could ask for directions and blah, blah, blah. So I'm studying and trying to practice to say everything right. What I didn't anticipate are people were going to speak back to me in Spanish, and I have to understand them. So I finally got to Spain, and I was still stuck because I didn't know what people were saying back to me.
Okay. Well, talking about that, I don't think that anyone can be a good professional in any field if he or she don't speak 2 or 3 languages. Because now you need to start thinking globally. I cannot think I'm going to be an instructor on Edinburgh. That's how I start, on Edinburgh, Texas. Well, maybe McAllen, Texas. Well, maybe Houston, Dallas, Laredo area. But then start Mexico, and then South America, then Central America, then Spain. And I need to learn to think globally. When I immigrated to the United States, a lot of people, they told me, hey, you need to speak English. This is America. You need to speak English. Okay. So finally, I learned to speak English and write in English and read in English and all that. But that's not enough. That's not enough. Because see, how many companies do you think American companies are having presence on other countries? Do you know that Walmart have Walmart stores here in Mexico, South America, and Central America?
No. No.
So how their pilots are going to do that?
Yeah, I saw a Starbucks. And this is funny. I saw a Starbucks. My friend went to Austria, and he was in the Starbucks. It looked exactly like the United States, except that all the pastries were perfectly lined up. And I was like, oh my God, that's so dramatic of them. No, but they're wearing the same outfits and the same look. And I was like, wow, how wacky, even in Austria.
Here, close to my house, which is your house, my casa es tu casa.
Yeah.
We have Walmart, we have Best Buy, we have Home Depot, all American companies here. Now, let me ask you something. Those pilots, because those companies use pilots, the people don't move on buses, on trains. How they are going to do it? Mm-hmm. Now, of course, it's in English. Yes, it's in English. But what my position is that English is not enough.
No,
it's not, and I need to ask forgiveness to all the Americans that still thinking that English is the only language. Mm-mm. So they are so wrong, so behind. Yeah. So to all the new people, the young people, you need to learn. You need to learn another language, in case Spanish, and I'm trying to learn some Italian and some Portuguese. So I'm working on that. Yeah. But I don't see myself hooking one language only.
Yeah. Well, the world is becoming smaller and smaller with the age of technology, which I love. I mean, I've talked to people in Bulgaria, and it's so super cool that I have an interview with people in Bulgaria and Germany, and it's just awesome to hear the different perspectives and different people. And when you